This interview is a paid advertisement. It was produced on behalf of the company and is considered investor relations activity under Canadian securities law. All statements and opinions are those of the guest and should not be construed as investment advice. Please do your own due diligence or consult a registered investment advisor. Hello and welcome to the Gold Newsletter channel. My name is Kai Hoffman. I'm the EdJR mining guy over on X, and together with our good friend Brian London, I'm your host of the Gold Newsletter channel. And I'm really looking forward to this interview today because it is a company introduction. We'll be joined in a few short seconds by Galen McNamara. He's the CEO over at Silver47, a newly created company. A newly created company because it's the merger. The result of a merger of two companies, Silver47 and Summa Silver, and the company has big plans. I read somewhere that they're targeting 1 billion ounces of silver, or silver equivalent, and we need to quiz Galen on how they plan to achieve that. What is the business plan? What can we expect as investors from the company in the next few months and years? So lots to discuss and lots to get through, but before I switch over to my guest, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us reach a wider investor audience, and we much appreciate it. Now, Galen, welcome on the Gold Newsletter channel. It's good to have you. Thanks so much for making it.
Hi, Kai. Great to be here and nice to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you've been having a great summer. I know a busy summer because the merger just went through, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We just completed our merger on August 1st, so a busy summer, but you know all those things about making hay while the sun shines and all of that, so that's what we do.
Perfect timing. Sun is shining a lot right now. So, Galen, before we get into the nitty-gritty and get lost in some of the details here, give us a quick overview. Who and what is Silver47 as we speak?
Yeah, so Silver47 is really a US-focused silver exploration and development company with 3 projects between Alaska, Nevada, and New Mexico, with a pro forma mineral resource silver equivalent ounce endowment of 236 million ounces in the inferred category and an additional 10 million ounces in the indicated category, all at high grade, averaging 330 grams per ton silver equivalent or so. And really what we're doing here is we're looking to build a go-to silver development name in the United States, specifically for investors who are interested in investing in assets like that may be at home. So we're aggressively pushing forward with that plan and growing this. And I think we're going to have some success here in the not too distant future.
Yeah, as you said, the sun is shining right now, so time to make some hay. Absolutely. Run us a bit through the history of both companies first, and now the combined company before we get to some more of the details. How did the deal happen? Like, why did you decide to merge?
Yeah. How the sausage is made on these transactions is of course very interesting and important. And the way that this started was I come from one of the companies, as CEO of one of the companies called Summa Silver, which you're aware of and lots of people were aware of. That's a company that I founded in 2020 with the idea of going into these Wild West American mining districts that were prolific historic silver and gold producers, but hadn't really seen much or any modern exploration. And, we thought that we can apply a modern focus starting in 2020, drill out some pretty significant resources using the tools that we have now that, the old time miners, as good as they were, and they were great, just didn't have, modern drilling technologies, modern 3D software to help us build geologic models and et cetera. And not to get too far in the weeds on the technicals, but that was key. Where fast forward 5 years, we announced a 78 million ounce combined resources between both the projects. And I thought, hey, this looks pretty good, but it's only just a start. So going forward for Summa, before we announced this transaction, we had 2 choices. We could continue growing the deposits through the drill bit, which we were very confident would be successful. But that takes time, and that's okay, but it does take time. Of course, the other way to grow a company like ours was through M&A, where, hey, can we find a transaction here where 1 + 1 might equal 3 or 5? And that was something I always think about, and still I'm always thinking about, no matter what. We started talking to Gary Thompson at Silver47, the CEO of Silver47, in about January, and thought, hey, if we put these 2 things together, that would really create a larger investment vehicle for things like the ETFs, for larger institutional shareholders, for retail that was starting to come into the precious metals investment or return to the precious metals investment. But just a quick summary of Silver47. It was a company that went public in late 2024. With this asset in Alaska, this Red Mountain asset in Alaska, which hosts about 167 million silver equivalent ounces in a VMS district, a volcanogenic massive sulfide district with excellent exploration upside. So we got to talking and thought to ourselves, is this something where the sum of the parts is worth more than the parts in pieces? And we thought yes. So fast forward to about May, after we did all of our due diligence, we announced the transaction in late May, and then closed it on August 1st. And Kai, it's always funny, like when you start talking about this thing, you have a meeting of the minds and you think, oh yeah, we're going to get through this real quick, and it still takes 6 months.
Yeah, I've been on the board of a company where we had those discussions, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and how painful sometimes those discussions can be. And the lawyers and the language, it's like, oh, you forgot a comma here; it changes the meaning of everything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Before we get to the projects, Galen here, I really want to discuss the 3 projects with you in detail and what the plans are moving forward. We got to get an overview of the capital structure. What does the merged company now look like? How many shares outstanding do you have? Like, how many warrants? And of course, what's the cash position?
Yeah, all of those are very important and critical, of course. So right now we've got 138 million shares outstanding at a share price this morning of 74 cents. That gives us a market cap in Canadian dollars of a little over 100 million. With warrants and options, we're fully diluted at 184.5 million shares, but many of those warrants are out of the money. Many are not, but many are, or very close to it. And then in terms of a cash position, we've got working capital of a little under $12 million before we started drilling here in Alaska a couple months ago, and it's about a $4 million drill program to give people a flavor of what we're doing. So deploying that capital that we raised when we announced the deal, deploying it into the ground to add value. And then the last thing I just want to mention, Kai, is that just the shareholder spread. Eric Sprott is our largest shareholder at 12%, and then between management and institutional investors, it's an initial 25 to 30%. So we think we're in good shape there.
Yeah, absolutely. $12 million. You used the term working capital. I just want to clarify. Is that all cash, loans, access, revolvers? Just clarify.
It's cash minus accounts payable at the time. Yeah, there's nothing else weird than that.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes companies include revolvers or so, working capital or access to working capital. It could include a bank revolver or something.
I don't even know what a revolver is.
Well, you were picking up assets in the Wild West, and you don't know what a revolver is.
Oh, yeah, that type of revolver, sure.
No, fantastic. Gail, it's like $12 million. Run us a bit through, like, what's the plan? Or you know what? Before we get to how you spent the money, run us a bit through the business plan in general. Like, where do you want to go? Like, if you were to come to me if I were a banker and you wanted to get a small loan, run me a bit through the concept here. Sell me on it.
Yeah. So I think number one, why own this company? And when I was looking at doing these transactions and what kind of projects excite me in the silver space, there's very few projects and assets that are in the United States and silver facing. In fact, like there's a handful of high grade silver facing projects that aren't in the hands of a major that are like good, over 10 million ounces or something like that are good's the wrong word, that are sufficiently advanced. There's lots of good exploration projects out there. So we start checking boxes like high grade, United States, and we've got 3 of them. So that's number one. I think that's important because when the generalist investor starts to come back into this market, and we're starting to see it now, I think that they're gonna, and they go from like 0.1% of their portfolio in precious metals to like 1 or 2 or maybe a bit more. I think it used to be like 10%, like back in the 70s or something like that. But let's just say it goes from 0.1 to 2. That's 20x. There's so few silver names to own in general, and so few that are focused in domestically, that we think that this can be a must-own name for investors that come into the markets, for ETFs, and for certain funds that are going to start looking to exposure for precious metals. Number one. Number two, I also want to talk about just our valuation relative to our peers before I talk about general plan going forward. And right now we trade on an US dollar EV per ounce basis at 27 cents per silver equivalent ounce in the ground. We look at some of our peers that also are at the resource stage, and they're like $1 to $2. So like that right there, there's a clear justification for appreciation and for us to play catch up. But like we're not just sitting on that. We're out there and pretty aggressively wanting to build ounces on our projects.
What's the exit strategy for you, Galen? Like, what's the plan? Do you plan to build or you plan to sell?
It's like the classic question that you can ask any junior mining CEO. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna be a little bit diplomatic about that because I don't think it's really fair for companies to come out and say, yeah, we're gonna build this up and sell it, because I don't think that's a very good business practice. But of course, when you look at the the history of when juniors try to build things, it doesn't go very well. Now, I'd like to think we're different, just based on our experience, our deep experience in the industry and building a team that's fit for purpose. But the way I like to approach that, Kai, is that I want to be ready for the next step, whatever that is. I want to build the company for the next several steps, whatever that is. It's like you're driving down the freeway or the Autobahn, and you're ready for an exit, but you take it when it presents itself to you.
I was going to say, like, you should have said, like, well, my goal is to push the market valuation so high that I have to build it myself.
Yeah, right. Well, you know what? I mean, like, it's one thing at a time, and the assets are going to dictate, the way that goes. But of course, we're going to aggressively push them as much as we can.
Yeah, perfect. No, it makes sense. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or anything, Galen.
No.
But let's run through the assets. You started touching on Red Mountain up in Alaska. Of course, it's bringing in the biggest resource base into the company. Which one is going to be the flagship, and how are you planning to distribute the exploration dollars here?
Yeah, Red Mountain is the flagship. It's got 169 million silver equivalent ounces in it. We think it has a lot of room to grow. The drilling we're doing now is a mix of step out, but infill drilling to grow high-grade ounces into high-grade domains and doing the geologic models and really modernizing the data set. But certainly that is the one that we think has the clearest development path right now. There's also some really interesting exploration potential on that project where we just put out a news release last week that shows that we've got like 35 other targets and like mineralized showings at surface that are most of which are basically unexplored, except for a few samples, and maybe a geologist walked over them for a couple days going back to between now and the 90s, and we're reassessing those. We've got some good geophysical coverage, but where they have been drilled in a couple places, there's like some good early drill discoveries in 2 or 3 holes. Nothing that's like the mother lode, but like really good places to start. So I think you and your viewers know as well as anyone, especially if they've invested in mining for any amount of time, like these VMS, volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits, they occur in clusters. And when they get to be really good, they can really be quote unquote company making things. So that's something that, is quite interesting to me, but yeah, that's going to be the focus going forward. And the other projects, I mean, it's really good to have. There's a 3.5-month drilling season in Alaska. So we have to get as much done as we can in the time that we have. But the projects in Nevada and New Mexico also have a lot of ounces on them as a starting point and great upside. We drilled those at Summa. We discovered silver for 25 cents an ounce, give or take, US, to inception. Continuing to step out and drill those projects, that's an awesome value proposition when silver is pushing $40. I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was coughing. Apologize. No, absolutely. As I said, like, silver is moving higher. It's moving in the right direction. But on the Alaskan project, Red Mountain, like, what's the goal for this season? Let's stay on that. I'm not sure if you've announced it yet, and I'm not trying to put you in a tough spot, Galen. But how many meters are you drilling? How many holes? And what is the goal for this year? Can we expect a resource update in January?
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance of that. So look, the budget for this year is 4,000 meters, and say it's between 12 and 15 holes, and mixed between step out and step in, as I call it. And on the step in front, like, it's a little bit of infill, but we're building what we think will develop into high grade domains. So adding high grade ounces there is really the idea. And then in terms of a resource estimate, I would like to see how the results go and see what they're going to be. But that's certainly a goal of ours as a company. And there's like an interesting tidbit that I'll share here, in that this project, when it was listed on the ASX with a previous operator, had a JORC compliant resource of 21 million tons. When it was updated to NI 43-101, it got cut down to 15. And we really want to explore why that happened and how we can improve it by improving our geologic controls, our geologic data, our geologic modeling, our structural modeling, all those things that, are like a foreign language to many other people, but this is what we live and die by the sword of here.
Yeah. Run us a bit through the metals mix. Like, you keep using silver equivalent, so I'm curious, like, how many percent of that is actually silver versus zinc, lead, and the others polymetallic metals here?
Yeah, for sure. So whoever decided that they were going to put silver in the ground, also 95% of the time decided that it would go with other things, right? So silver, let me give it to you on the precious metals side, because that's how my mind works. That's the number I know. I think this one is about 30 to 35% precious metals. Company-wide, though, we're 55 to 60% precious metals. And, people might say to me, oh, wow, there's a lot of zinc in here and a lot of other stuff. But guess what? Zinc's a critical metal. And these VMS deposits are really metal sinks for lots of different things. So there's also appreciable concentrations of copper, lead, and then new things that are becoming very important in the 21st century, like antimony, like gallium, that may interest the U.S. Department of Defense when we get this a little bit further along the line. And just for reference, a metal like gallium trades at something like $1 a gram, and we get grades in some holes that are in some areas that are 100 grams per ton. So you won't recover 100% of that, but let's say you recover half of it. There's $50 a ton, to the NSR value of the entire deposit. So I like to call that polymetallic upside. And you know what? Having access to these critical metals in the United States when this administration is really concentrating on developing those assets. Like I saw a quote from Doug Burgum, the Secretary of the Interior, just from not that long ago. I think he was in Alaska, and he said, "Hey, it's not just drill baby drill for us. It's mine baby mine." It's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Which leads me to permitting. Galen, you open the door. Now we got to walk through it together. Run us a bit through the permitting situation. Are you permitted for your exploration program and what you plan to do, and B, run us a bit through the, what do you call it, forward-looking statements on permitting here.
Yeah, and of course, that's something that we looked at very closely when we were doing, the merger. And let me just silence my phone here. People just keep trying to call me during this interview, and it comes up on my screen. Excuse me. So yeah, that's one of the things we looked at very closely as part of the merger, and Silver47 looked at Summa very closely as well, in fairness. So yes, fully permitted to do the exploration we want to do over X amount of years that, we're going to continue doing it. But, in Alaska, we're looking on state land right now. We're working on state land. We're surrounded by placer miners and work very closely with them. We're building a very strong relationship with the DNR. And my impression of Alaska, which I think just got number 2 on the best place to work from the Fraser Institute, is that, open for business in this part of the state. It really matters, having worked in the United States now for 5 years. You hear about Nevada being the best place and it's all good, or, other places, but where you are in the state really matters. Really makes a difference. It's very hard to build a mine right beside Reno or Las Vegas, but if you're up near Tonopah, it's very fair. And Alaska's the same way, and we're in a spot where it's very fair.
I remember Tonopah's fantastic infrastructure because the highway used to run right through your project back then. What does it look like up at Red Mountain? What's the infrastructure situation?
Yeah, so this is about it's about 100 kilometers south of Fairbanks, and say 40 kilometers or 50 kilometers from the road. So it's something that would remind me of where we're at in for maybe investors understand this a little more clearly, is that the Golden Triangle of BC. It's similar situation to that in a better permitting regime.
Okay, that makes sense. Any famous neighbors? Golden Triangle is riddled with mines. What does it look like up at Red Mountain?
No, there's no famous neighbors because we own the entire VMS district. So it's
go.
60 kilometers long, and we own it all. So that's it.
Fantastic. When do you expect drill results from Red Mountain? Like you said, you started drilling recently. What's the turnaround time? What do you expect?
You know what? We started drilling in June and got through a few little hiccups at site and getting meters down, but fixed that and got the samples out. The turnaround times are over a month, but I tell you, I was just looking at my phone. They have it on an app now where you can see where your samples, what stage they're at. And we've started to get preliminary just gold assays back for, I think, one of the holes. So, I have the gold. I don't want to just put out one hole, right? So, we have the goal of starting to batch them out, hopefully in later September.
Yeah. Okay, no, it makes sense. I like the badging aspect as well, because then people have a better understanding of what it looks like geology-wise. Fantastic.
Sure.
Galen, we mostly talked about Red Mountain. Quickly, Mogul and Tonopah, what are the plans? Are we going to revisit that come January once you're done in Alaska?
Absolutely, and probably sooner. We're planning a late fall drill program in Mogollon, New Mexico, to just step out from where we already know there's mineralization and add high-grade blocks. There's a 32 million ounce resource there now, but that's really just a starting point. It incompletely covers 2 kilometers of one of the veins. There's 77 kilometers of vein and prospective structure on the property, and no real modern exploration. It really is akin or a cousin to some of the famous Mexican mining districts that the Spanish have been mining going back 500 years. It's just going to take time to drill it out, and we're going to do it.
Fantastic. Galen, bit of an unfair question, but since we're doing a paid-for interview, I feel like I can ask it. What's the marketing plan for the company?
Yeah, you know what? Like you see me doing interviews like this, I want to get it's a new company and I want to get our name out to as many investors as we can. There's many junior mining companies out there all competing for the same group of investors and we stand out and people need to know why we stand out. So you'll see a focus from myself and from Gary and from Jordi Belfiore, who many people may have talked to on the phone. I'm traveling around to different things and different places and just talking to people and building relationships with people and doing interviews like this.
Perfect. Galen, I should have asked earlier, but actually, question in terms of business plans: are you done with M&A? Are you happy with what you got, or are you looking constantly, or still looking at opportunities?
That is the one thing that we need to discuss. I'm always looking at opportunities. We have a goal, an ambitious goal, to grow this company to a 1 billion ounce resource endowment, silver equivalent. So there's two ways to do that through the drill bit. Do I think that we can do it on our properties? I actually do. But of course it's going to take a lot of time. We're a quarter of the way there. Of course, a lot of time, but I actually do think it's there. And of course, the other way to do that is through M&A. So we're always looking at opportunities for like-minded potential partners who we can work with.
And then it's such a basic question, or not a basic, it's just almost a boring question, but what's giving you sleepless nights?
That is a good question. What gives me sleepless nights is like I ask myself when things get so busy, and they are very busy, I ask myself, what am I missing? What am I missing? And I guess that's just normal stuff for anyone in a leadership position. But that's it. I try to concentrate on the things I can control, and the things I can't control, well, I try not to worry about. But maybe you know this. I mean, easier said than done.
Absolutely. Lists help. Lists.
Yeah,
with the
lists
mental
help.
load.
That's right.
Lists
right,
with the
yeah.
mental for the mental load.
I think I got a to-do list like right here, honestly.
Oh, mine is getting longer by the minute
Yeah.
here as well. It's insane.
Yeah.
But Galen, last question. Catalysts we can look forward to. Obviously, drill results from Red Mountain. What else should we be paying attention to?
Yeah. Ongoing drill results from Red Mountain, and then we'll switch to working in the lower 48 in the later part of the year. And then let's see how the results go from this year, and let's think about resource updates. And if the resource update looks good, and we think it'll support a PEA, a good-looking PEA, well, we'll hit the gas on that as fast as we can too.
Fantastic. Galen, really appreciate you joining us. Great to catch up. It's been too long anyway, so glad you jumped on here, and hope to see you again soon. Probably in Beaver Creek, I'm assuming.
You know what? I can't make it to Beaver Creek this year because I'll be on baby watch starting in early September. So
fantastic.
Yeah,
baby watch means your wife is due soon. She's
right,
taking over she's taking your passport. She's taking it.
Yeah, well, I'm giving it to her. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, congratulations on that, Galen.
Thank you.
And really appreciate it. We need to catch up again soon. And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning into the Gold Newsletter. Much appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with Galen McNamara. As you can tell, I've known him for a number of years, and I always love having guests on that we have a bit of a rapport with. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Potentially share it with other like-minded investors, just so that we can reach a wider audience. It's much appreciated, and we'll be back with lots more. Take care out there.